J.D. Vance thought he was walking into another debate he could dominate, until Jasmine slid a piece of papers across the table that flipped the entire conversation and America on its head. The Chiron read crossfire, legislative overreach, and the American future, flanked by the familiar swirl of red, white, and blue. It was a prime-time panel, hyped all week across network promos and political feeds. The framing was simple, a cross-party conversation about government authority. But anyone who knew the game understood it wasn't a conversation, it was theater, and tonight's cast was ready for lights. Senator J.D. Vance sat at the far end of the panel desk, posture rigid, jaw set like he'd been holding something in since breakfast. He was dressed for a fight-dark suit, no tie, shirt unbuttoned one notch too many. To his left, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett sat motionless, palms resting on the table, notepad unopened. She wore a tailored navy blazer and a half-smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Two moderators framed the desk, one from the network's political bureau, the other a columnist known for playing referee. The segment began predictably. Introductions, perfunctory smiles, and a question on land use regulation as a proxy for state versus federal authority. Vance took it first. His voice was calm, measured, like someone reciting a story he'd rehearsed for years. He leaned into phrases like Washington overreach, sovereign rights, and bureaucratic tyranny. He gestured just enough to look natural on camera, not so much as to seem angry. Crockett nodded as he spoke. Once. Then again. Not agreement, just acknowledgement. When the question came to her, Jasmine answered briefly. She pointed to data, shared a story from her district, then stopped. No rebuttal, no fire, just facts and air. It felt too quiet for a live segment. That silence unnerved him. Vance took the next question before it was fully asked. His tone sharpened. He didn't look at the moderators anymore. He looked at Jasmine, directly. It wasn't debate, it was challenge. But Jasmine stayed composed. She didn't interrupt. She didn't shift in her seat. She just listened. And beneath the calm, there was something else. A precision, like a surgeon waiting for the exact angle before making the first cut. The producers behind the glass leaned in. One whispered to another, "She's waiting for something." The other nodded, eyes on the timer. So was Jasmine. She didn't need the first move. She was watching for the moment that would make hers matter. J.D. Vance leaned forward, elbows on the desk like a man about to deliver a sermon. The audience, a curated blend of staffers, donors, and viewers lucky enough to snag a ticket, shifted slightly. The air changed. He could feel it and he fed off it. What we're seeing, he began, voice slow but rising, is a manufactured crisis, a big government power grab dressed up as compassion, wrapped in identity politics, sold as justice. He didn't say Jasmine's name. He didn't have to. The camera was already framed on her face. Vance gestured toward her file. Her housing bill, it's not policy, it's performance, a slickly packaged wish list with no fiscal backbone. It's what happens when coastal elites try to fix communities they've never visited, using taxpayer money they've never respected. The word elites hit with emphasis. Woke ideology, entitlement culture, inversion of merit. He layered buzzword upon buzzword like they were bulletproof. He grinned faintly between phrases, pausing just long enough for applause that never came. A few claps rang out from one side of the crowd. Vance glanced over, nodding subtly to a familiar face in the second row. A staffer, maybe a donor, the kind of people who needed to see him win. The rest of the audience, though, was quiet, watching, measuring. Jasmine didn't react. She didn't blink. She sat like a metronome, steady, focused. Her hand traced the edge of her notepad but never turned the page. Vance pressed on. This bill isn't about housing. It's about headlines. It's designed to trigger outrage, not deliver results. And frankly, the American people are tired of being guilt-tripped by people who don't understand real work. A few more claps, then silence again. The moderator tried to pivot. Congresswoman Crockett, would you like to respond? Jasmine looked up, eyes clear. She didn't answer right away. She glanced down, flipped the page on her notepad. When she spoke, her voice was calm, nearly soft. I will, she said. But first, I think it's time we talk about why some people work so hard to distract from what's actually written. She reached into her folder. The room tensed. And just like that, the bait had been taken. Jasmine didn't raise her voice. She didn't lean in. She didn't even change expression. The moment after J.D. Vance finished his tirade lingered like smoke in the air, heavy, uncomfortable, waiting to be cleared. The moderator opened her mouth to move things forward, but Jasmine was already speaking. "I'd love to respond," she said, tone even, almost warm. "But before I do, the senator should probably explain this." She reached down, not fast, not dramatic, just deliberate, and pulled a folder from beneath the desk, navy blue, unlabeled. She flipped it open and removed a single sheet of paper, then another, and then one more. She held them carefully, like something sacred, not for effect, but because the weight wasn't just paper, it was strategy. It was proof. The moderator tilted her head. "Congresswoman?" Jasmine handed over the pages without looking away from J.D. Vance. "This is an internal memo," she said, steady as glass. "From the senator's communications team, circulated last month. It outlines a strategy for responding to minority-led legislation specifically, bills like mine are not on merit, but through manufactured narrative." For a beat, no one moved. J.D. Vance laughed. Short, clipped, performative. "You've got to be kidding," he said. "What, we're passing notes now?" His voice was loud, louder than before, the kind of loud that covers panic. He adjusted his cuff, shifted in his seat, kept smiling, but the edge was showing now. A single bead of sweat just below his temple caught the studio lights. Jasmine still hadn't blinked. The moderator looked down at the memo. Her brows twitched confusion, then focus. She began to read silently, flipping to the second page. She mouthed something, a phrase. The camera caught it. Emotional instability framing. Vance was still smiling, but it didn't match his eyes. "This is absurd," he snapped. "Anyone can type up a fake memo." "Except it's not fake," Jasmine said quietly. "It came from your digital asset manager's shared drive. I had it verified by a third-party cybersecurity analyst 2 days ago." That landed. In the control room, a producer mouthed, "Run camera 2. The angle shifted. Jasmine was still calm, still grounded. And Vance, for the first time, looked like someone who'd lost the next line in a script he thought he wrote. The moderator took a breath, glanced off camera, and held the pages just a little tighter. "We'll put this on screen," she said, her voice thin with caution. "For transparency." The memo flickered to life on the monitor behind them, centered, full bleed. It wasn't flashy, just a PDF. Sans serif header, simple formatting, but the language that was loud. Subject: Response Framework. Minority. Led Housing Initiatives. Date: April 3. From Senate Comm Strategy, J.D. Vance Office. Beneath it, bullet points. Cold, clinical, focused on perception, not policy. Frame proposals as emotionally driven and lacking data, regardless of actual content. Avoid direct policy engagement, redirect to character and tone. Link language to broader culture war narratives. Victimhood, dependency, lack of accountability. Ideal phrasing, good intentions, poor execution, repeat as needed. Use welfare connotations subtly. Don't say welfare queens, but signal it. A second screen lit up annotated excerpts. Highlighted, labeled. Jasmine didn't speak. She didn't need to. The memo spoke for her. Vance shifted again, his jaw tight. "This is wildly out of context," he said. But the words sounded rehearsed, too ready, too worn out. The moderator didn't respond. She was still reading. So were the producers, so was the audience. Jasmine broke the silence. "You can disagree with my bill. You can challenge my math. That's politics. But this isn't disagreement. This is instruction." The camera cut to Vance. His smile had vanished. "You didn't want to debate the bill," Jasmine said. "You wanted to discredit the person behind it. Not based on policy, based on identity, based on tone, based on race." A hush fell over the room. Not dramatic, just final. And still, Jasmine didn't raise her voice. She turned to the moderator, then the camera. "I came here to talk about housing, but if the real story is how people in power are trained to ignore the facts and frame the fight, then let's have that conversation too." The screen stayed up a few seconds longer, long enough for people to screenshot, long enough to go viral. J.D. Vance blinked hard. The confidence, the smirk, the made-for-TV cadence, it all cracked in a single frame. He leaned forward, hands flat on the desk, eyes wide with performative disbelief. "This is a fabrication," he said, loud enough to sound decisive, shaky enough to betray it. "Anyone could have made that. This isn't verified. This is political theater." He tried to laugh, but it didn't land. The audience didn't laugh with him this time. A few people in the front row shifted uncomfortably. One woman folded her arms. Another whispered to her neighbor without taking her eyes off the screen behind him. Jasmine said nothing. The moderator looked to the control room. Her earpiece buzzed. She paused, then nodded slightly, almost imperceptibly, but the camera caught it. "We're being told," she said, "that the file came from an authenticated Dropbox directory linked to a former staffer on Senator Vance's comms team. We've confirmed its metadata. It originated inside your office." Vance's jaw clenched. "That's impossible. You're taking her word over mine?" Jasmine didn't flinch. The moderator didn't blink. The producer behind the glass leaned toward her mic. "He's unraveling," she said to no one in particular. "This is a stunt," Vance snapped. "She brought props. I brought policy. That should tell you everything." He gestured toward the folder still on Jasmine's desk like it was a weapon. But the air had shifted. The power dynamic had inverted. The audience, once a patchwork of polite claps and partisan chuckles, had gone quiet. Not the silence of deference, the silence of scrutiny, of reassessment. "Congresswoman Crockett," the moderator asked, "do you have a comment?" "I already gave it," Jasmine replied. "It's in writing." The camera zoomed in slightly, not on Vance this time. On Jasmine's expression, calm, still, the expression of someone who wasn't surprised, who knew this moment would come. Vance opened his mouth again, but this time, the moderator cut in. "Let's move on." But everyone knew they wouldn't. Not really. Because something had broken not just Vance's composure, but the entire tone of the room. And cameras? Cameras love a pivot, but they love a fall even more. 3 weeks before the panel, Jasmine sat in her office, overlooking South Capitol Street. It was late. The sky was dimming into that DC gray-blue that makes the lights inside seem too yellow. She was alone, save for a manila envelope slid across her desk earlier that day by someone who didn't work for her officially. The Hill staffer hadn't stayed long, didn't ask for anything, just said, "You might want to see this before the Thursday segment," and left without waiting for a reply. Inside, 3 pages. Clean, clinical, cruel in tone. A comms memo. Vance's team's watermark in the footer. It read like a manual for how to discredit people who looked like her without ever saying why. The language was calculated safe from scandal but soaked in bias. She read it once. Then again, she didn't react. She didn't call her team. She didn't forward it. She just folded the memo, slipped it into a Navy folder, and left it on her side table untouched for 2 days. Then she began the work. Cross-referencing phrases with past remarks from Vance. Pulling video clips, transcripts, articles, every emotional, every performative, every instance he dodged her data to target her tone. And slowly, the pattern sharpened, not just from him, but from the machine behind him. Her comms director asked if she wanted to go public. "Not yet," Jasmine said. "I'm not here to win Twitter. I'm here to win the moment." She waited. She prepped. She rehearsed only one thing, the line. "I'd love to respond, but before I do," the folder traveled with her for a week, to meetings, to interviews, to home. She never opened it in public. She never talked about it on camera. And when Liana, her most trusted aide, finally asked why she was sitting so quietly before the panel, Jasmine smiled. "I'm not here to react," she said. "I'm here to reveal. Because anyone can win a debate. But if you want to change the conversation, you wait. You listen. You watch for the moment they expose themselves. And then you hand them the mirror." The clip hit Twitter before the credits rolled. A 47-second cut. Jasmine Crockett calmly sliding the memo across the desk, while J.D. Vance flailed, sweat blooming just beneath his collar. No dramatic music, no shouting, just receipts, and a man unraveling in real time. Within the hour, it had been clipped, captioned, and reposted by every major political account from Brooklyn to Boise. Hashtags followed like sparks off a wire. Crockett receipts. Vance meltdown. Props and policy. By midnight, it was front-page digital on 4 news sites and a trending topic in 3 different time zones. Someone looped the moment Vance said this is political theater over a shot of him fumbling his talking points. It had 1 million views before sunrise. Cable news picked it up by morning. One segment on Morning Wire opened with a split-screen Jasmine, still as stone on the left, Vance mid-sputter on the right. A freeze frame zoomed in on the exact moment his smile dropped. The caption, "Real-time rethink." Pundits lined up fast. Half praised Jasmine for what they called masterclass composure. The other half scrambled to find a talking point for Vance talking point. One tried, weakly, to call it an ambush of style over substance. But the memo was the substance. The late-night shows came next. One host dubbed it the calm before the Vance. Another joked, when your talking points meet actual evidence awkward. Even TikTok stitched together past clips of Vance using the exact phrases found in the leaked document. By midday, journalists were digging deeper, verifying the memo, tracing staff connections, pulling campaign finance logs. It wasn't just the memo anymore. It was what the memo represented: strategy over sincerity, spin over substance, and the country saw it play out live. Meanwhile, Jasmine's name was everywhere, trending, shared, admired, but she wasn't speaking. She didn't need to. The footage did that for her. The next morning, while headlines circled like vultures, Jasmine Crockett was back in Texas. No press conference, no primetime interviews, no retweeting herself into the algorithm. She was in a school auditorium in Denton, listening to fourth-grade teachers talk about supply shortages and student trauma. Her blazer was folded over a chair. Her phone was face down in her bag. Her attention flee here. No cameras, no spotlight, just the work. Back in Washington, her team fielded hundreds of media requests. Late Show wanted her for the next segment. 3 Sunday panels reached out. One network even offered an entire special. Her response was the same for each: not right now. When Liana asked if they should at least release a statement, Jasmine shook her head. They've already heard what they needed to, she said. Now we show them what comes after. That after was an education equity bill quietly in the works for months. A data-driven proposal aimed at closing resource gaps between urban and rural schools. She'd drafted it on flights, edited it in coffee shops, and workshopped it with school boards across the state. No one knew about it yet, and that was the point. Meanwhile, J.D. Vance's team was in triage mode. The comms director appeared on a conservative podcast that afternoon, framing the panel as a setup designed to bait the senator into failure. The host nodded sympathetically, but even he looked unconvinced. A memo doesn't bait, a reaction does. By day's end, the spin had shifted again. They called it an orchestrated smear campaign, then weaponized optics, then just plain unfair. But the problem wasn't the frame, it was the footage. And people had already made up their minds. In the silence that followed, something rare happened in politics. People leaned in, not because someone shouted, but because someone didn't have to. By the end of the week, the memo wasn't just a scandal, it was a mirror. And the people holding it up weren't political operatives or influencers. They were staffers, interns. Legislative aides who'd read the Crockett memo recognized the tone and quietly opened their own folders. In Senate offices up and down the Hill, conversations turned cautious. Chiefs of staff held impromptu closed-door meetings. Let's review comms became code for what's in writing that could get us burned. The language was familiar, too familiar. Emotional framing, distraction tactics. Build the narrative, ignore the policy. Suddenly, everyone wondered who else had receipts. Reporters caught the scent. By Monday, 2 national outlets had published deep dives on performative obstructionism inside the Senate. One highlighted how media consultants routinely coached lawmakers to provoke reactions from colleagues of color. It's not about the argument, one former aide said off record. It's about the optics of who looks composed. Jasmine's panel clip ran beneath the headline. Meanwhile, Vance's office couldn't catch a clean breath. Every attempt to pivot just pulled the story deeper. A quiet inquiry into campaign consultants, a resignation from a junior staffer. Then came the constituent emails. They weren't angry, not most of them, just pointed. Why didn't you respond to the bill itself? Do you think housing isn't a real issue? I voted for you. I just want answers, not theatrics. By the following Friday, someone in Vance's camp leaked that he was retooling his legislative approach going forward. Translation: stay out of fights you can't win with talking points. And still Jasmine said nothing. She was working. 3 weeks later, Jasmine Crockett returned to the floor with a revised version of her housing bill. Tighter language, cleaner metrics, expanded funding maps. It had gained co-sponsors 2 Republicans, 1 independent. It was no longer a partisan flashpoint. It was legislation. Vance's name wasn't on it. She didn't need to mention him. The moment had passed. The work had stayed. At a town hall in Columbus, folding chairs lined the gymnasium of a local rec center. The crowd was mixed: young organizers, old union men, tired moms, curious students. Jasmine stood at the front, sleeves rolled, sneakers worn, holding a mic that cracked once every 10 seconds. A young woman in the back raised her hand. "How did you stay so calm?" she asked, "while he came at you like that?" Jasmine smiled. "It wasn't big. It wasn't proud. It was real. Because I wasn't there to argue," she said. "I was there to show the truth. No applause. Just stillness, the kind that feels heavier than noise." The next morning, the bill cleared committee. By noon, a clip from the town hall was making its way around the internet. No graphics, no spin, just that one quiet answer. And just like that, the conversation had shifted for good. This story was brutal. But this story on the right-hand side is even more insane.